The hospital room on Chicago's South Side smelled of antiseptic and despair, a sterile prison where hope seemed to wither under the hum of fluorescent lights. 13-year-old Maya Johnson sat in a hard plastic chair, its edges digging into her thin frame, her eyes fixed on her father, James Johnson. Once a towering figure whose laughter could shake the walls of their cramped apartment, James now lay frail, swallowed by white sheets, his breathing tethered to machines that beeped like a countdown. His hands, calloused from 20 years of hauling bricks and pouring concrete, trembled as they reached for hers. His skin stretched thin over bones too sharp for a man who'd once carried her on his shoulders to watch 4th of July fireworks. James rasped Maya, "My diamond, my diamond." His voice a faint echo of the baritone that had sung her to sleep with tales of constellations. Blood speckled his lips, each drop a cruel reminder of the cancer eating him alive. "Your mind. It's sharper than any tool I have ever held. Don't let this world dull it." His brown eyes, dimmed by pain but fierce with love, locked onto hers. "Promise me you'll shine so bright you touch the stars." Maya's small hand disappeared in his grip, her heart pounding as she leaned closer, her braids brushing the edge of the bed. She was a black girl from Englewood, where dreams were luxuries few could afford, and the world outside the hospital window, glittering with Chicago's skyline, belonged to people who'd never know her name. But her father saw her, had always seen her. At 5, she'd read novels meant for high schoolers. She'd fixed their broken radio at 10 with a screwdriver and intuition. Last year, her standardized test scores had stunned teachers at a school where textbooks were older than hers, held together by duct tape and defiance. "I promise, Daddy," she whispered, her voice cracking like glass under the weight of grief. Tears streamed down her cheeks, twin rivers carving paths through her resolve. "I'll make you proud. I'll show them all." James's smile was faint but radiant, transforming the room into something sacred. "You're gonna change the world, baby girl," he murmured, his thumb tracing her knuckles. "I see it in you, bright as the sun." The heart monitor faltered, its beeps stretching into agonizing pauses, like footsteps fading down a long hallway. His eyes never left hers as his breathing slowed, then stopped. The machine screamed, but Maya heard only silence, a deafening void where her father's voice used to be. At that moment, something hardened Maya's soul. The promise wasn't just words to comfort a dying man, but a vow etched in her bones, a fire in her heart. She was 13, orphaned in spirit, with a mother lost to depression and a world that saw her as just another kid from the wrong zip code. But she carried her father's faith, a beacon to guide her through the darkness ahead. The next 5 years unfolded like a battlefield. Their apartment, a one-bedroom walk-up with peeling paint and a leaky faucet, became a war zone against poverty. Lena, Maya's mother, drifted in and out of coherence, her brilliance, a mind that once solved equations like puzzles, dimmed by grief and pills. Maya became a parent and child, cooking meals from canned beans and day-old bread, paying bills with money scraped from babysitting and cleaning neighbors' homes. At 14, she worked after school at a diner, balancing trays heavy with grease-soaked plates while memorizing algebra formulas during breaks. At 15, she added weekend shifts at a corner store, counting pennies to keep the heat on. Her 4.0 GPA unnoticed by teachers too busy to care. The South Side wasn't kind to dreamers. Gang violence echoed in the streets, and sirens were a nightly lullaby. Classmates mocked her thrift store clothes, calling her a charity case when she aced tests they failed. Yet, every night, Maya stood on their rusty fire escape, staring at the stars her father loved. "I will not just survive," she whispered to the Chicago sky, her breath visible in the winter chill. "I will rise." The words were a prayer, a defiance against a world that told black girls like her to stay small. Lena's rare lucid moments were lifelines. One evening, as Maya struggled with calculus, Lena sat beside her, her eyes clear for the first time in months. "Your grandma used to mix aloe and shea for our skin," she said softly, sketching a formula on scrap paper. "You could make something with that, Maya, something real." It was a spark, an idea for a skincare line born from her family's roots, affordable for women like them. Maya tucked it away, a seed planted in her mind. The school was her refuge, though flawed. Her magnet school, a step up from the crumbling public system, still lacked resources. Teachers praised her potential, but offered no mentorship, assuming she'd settle for community college. Yet Maya devoured books, taught herself coding from library computers, and wrote essays that made her English teacher pause. She applied for scholarships, her pen scratching out dreams of Northwestern, where she could study business and turn her grandmother's remedies into a legacy. The stars her father loved watched over her, silent witnesses to her resolve. Each rejection, another unpaid bill, another classmate's sneer, only fueled her fire. She wasn't just fighting for herself and for James, Lena, and every woman in her family who'd clawed through hardship. Standing on that fire escape with a scholarship letter at 16, Maya renewed her vow. "I'm coming for you, Daddy," she said to the night sky. "I'm gonna touch those stars." At 16, Maya Johnson was a flicker of brilliance in the gray haze of Chicago's South Side. Englewood's streets, scarred by boarded-up shops and the echo of distant gunfire, offered little room for dreams. But Maya carried hers like a torch. By day, she navigated the halls of her magnet school, a concrete fortress where half the lockers were broken, and the library's books smelled of mildew. By night, she scrubbed dishes at a diner or stocked shelves at a corner store, her hands raw from work, but her mind alight with ideas. Her father's voice, "Your mind is a diamond, Maya. Shine bright," was her compass, guiding her through a world that seemed determined to snuff her out. The magnet school, a hard-won escape from Englewood's failing public system, was a mixed blessing. Maya's scholarship, earned through relentless test scores, made her an outlier among peers who eyed her thrift store sneakers with disdain. "Charity's case," they whispered when she aced math quizzes or recited Shakespeare in English class. Her teachers, overworked and underpaid, offered faint praise but no guidance, assuming a black girl from her zip code would peak at community college. Yet Maya devoured every lesson, her notebook filled with equations and poetry, her brain a furnace forging dreams too big for her circumstances. Her biggest dream took root in memory of her grandmother, Ruth, blending aloe and shea butter in their kitchen, creating balms that soothed skin, darkened by sun and struggle. "We don't need fancy creams, Maya," Ruth had said, her hands steady as she stirred. "Nature's got all we need." Maya saw a gap in the world. Drugstore lotions that burned her skin or cost more than a week's groceries. She began sketching a plan for a skincare line. Affordable, natural, made for women like her mother, Lena, whose beauty had faded under poverty's weight. In stolen moments at the library, Maya researched ingredients, jotting notes on pH balances and emulsifiers, her pen scratching out a future she could barely imagine. The home was a battleground. Their one-bedroom apartment, with its flickering lights and roach-infested corners, felt like a cage. Maya's mother, Lena, was a ghost of her former self, a mathematician once courted by universities, now lost to depression's grip. On bad days, Lena stared at walls, her pills untouched. On good days, she'd sit with Maya, her voice soft but sharp, unraveling calculus problems like tapestry threads. One evening, as Maya puzzled over a chemistry equation, Lena traced a formula on a napkin. Your grandma's balms? They're science, not magic, she said, her eyes briefly alive. Mix shea with glycerin, stabilize it right, and you've got a product. Maya clung to these moments, rare sparks of the mother she'd lost when James died. Work consumed her life. At the diner, Maya balanced trays of greasy burgers, dodging leers from late-night customers while memorizing SAT vocab on breaks. At the store, she stacked cans of soup, her back aching, counting every dollar toward rent. Her earnings, $200 a week, if tips were good, kept the lights on, but left no room for extras. Once, a classmate's party invite tempted her, but the $10 bus fare was a luxury she couldn't afford. You're too serious, Maya, her co-worker Tanya teased, tossing her a stale donut. Live a little. Maya smiled, but didn't reply. Living for her meant surviving long enough to build something lasting. School wasn't just a refuge. It was a proving ground. Maya's experiment on natural emulsifiers in chemistry class earned a nod from Ms. Carter, her teacher, who muttered, "You've got a brain, kid." But when Maya asked about science fairs, Ms. Carter shrugged. They're for kids with money for supplies. Undeterred, Maya scavenged ingredients, coconut oil from a neighbor, aloe from a community garden, and tested formulas in their kitchen, her hands sticky but her heart racing. Her first balm, a blend of shea and lavender, left her skin soft, a small victory in a world of defeats. The neighborhood tested her resolve. Gang recruiters eyed her, offering cash for easy jobs. Maya kept her head down, clutching her backpack like a shield. One night, walking home from the diner, a car slowed beside her, its window rolling down. "A smart girl like you could make bank," a voice called. Maya's pulse hammered, but she kept walking, her father's words, a mantra, "Shine bright." The car sped off, but fear lingered, a reminder of the edge's proximity. Lena's illness was the heaviest burden. One night, Maya found her mother on the floor, an empty bottle of whiskey nearby. Panic surged as she called 911, her voice steady despite tears. At the hospital, a social worker warned that if she didn't stabilize, you could end up in foster care. Maya nodded, hiding her terror. Back home, she taped Lena's pills to the fridge, a desperate plea for control. "I need you, Mama," she whispered, but Lena only stared, her eyes vacant. Yet hope persisted. A scholarship offer from Northwestern arrived, a business program that could turn her skincare dream into reality. The letter, creased from rereading, was a lifeline. But doubts crept in. Could she leave Lena? Afford college? Compete with kids from wealthier worlds? On the fire escape, stars hidden by city smog, Maya spoke to her father. "I'm trying, Daddy," she said, her voice breaking. "But it's so hard." A breeze stirred as if in answer, and she straightened, resolving to harden. She'd fight. For James, Lena, and the girl who refused to be dimmed. At 18, Maya Johnson moved through the glittering ballroom of Chicago's Meridian Hotel like a shadow in borrowed silk. The black cocktail dress, lent by her supervisor at the catering company, clung to her frame, its elegance a stark contrast to the thrift store clothes she wore at home. Crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across marble floors, each step reminding her of the chasm between her Englewood roots and this world of wealth. As a server, she wove between Chicago's elite, offering champagne flutes on a silver tray that weighed more than her weekly grocery budget. Her dark skin and braided hair drew curious glances, but the patron's eyes slid past her face, seeing only the uniform. not the girl who'd scored a whole ride to Northwestern. Maya's hands trembled slightly, not from nerves, but from exhaustion. She'd worked a double shift at the diner to cover Lena's medication. Her mother's depression now managed, but fragile. The school was a whirlwind. AP classes, scholarship essays, and late nights refining her skincare business plan, inspired by her grandmother's remedies. Maya's Radiance, she called it. A dream of affordable natural products for women of color, sketched in a notebook tucked in her locker. Her father's voice, "Shine bright, Maya," pushed her forward, but tonight, she felt like a candle flickering in a storm. The Future Leaders Gala was a spectacle of performative charity. Chicago's wealthiest families mingled, discussing tax-deductible donations with the same indifference as ordering coffee. Maya overheard snippets, vacation homes in Aspen, private school waitlists, conversations alien to her world of overdue bills and gang sirens. Then, Will Carter took the stage, and the room's energy shifted like a tide pulling toward the moon. At 26, he was a white heir to Carter Enterprises, a real estate empire. His tailored tuxedo hugged a lean frame, his blonde hair swept back, blue eyes sharp with practiced charisma. He declared that we're here to build bridges, his voice smooth as velvet, to invest in communities, to lift talent from every corner of Chicago. Maya paused near the kitchen doors, tray forgotten, her eyes narrowing. Will spoke of opportunity and diversity, but she knew his company's developments, luxury condos that displaced families like hers, pushing them out of neighborhoods they'd called home for generations. Her father had built homes for others, only to die in a hospital that couldn't save him. The hypocrisy stung. As Will opened the floor for questions, Maya's hand shot up, surprising even herself. The moderator, a man in a pinstripe suit, hesitated, his gaze sweeping past her twice before settling on her with reluctant curiosity. "Yes, miss?" Will said, his tone polite but tinged with condescension, as if humoring a child. 500 eyes turned to her, the room falling silent, the weight of their stares heavy with judgment. Maya stepped forward, heart hammering, channeling her father's faith and Lena's rare moments of fire. "Mr. Carter," she began, her voice clear and steady, honed by years of reciting poetry in class. "Your foundation discusses community investment, but how do you ensure it benefits existing residents? Your projects often raise rents, forcing families out. And how do your opportunity programs reach kids like me, black, poor, with no connections to navigate your applications?" Her words sliced through the room's polished veneer, exposing the gap between rhetoric and reality. Gasps rippled through the crowd, some offended, others intrigued by this server daring to challenge their golden boy. Will's smile faltered, his composure flickering like a candle in the wind. He'd faced questions, but none so precise, so rooted in lived experience. "That's an insightful question," he said, recovering with a nod. "It deserves a deeper discussion than we can have here." The crowd murmured, sensing a shift, the gala's script veering into uncharted territory. Maya held his gaze, her chin high, refusing to shrink under the weight of their scrutiny. Hours later, after the guests had departed in their Bentleys, Maya sat across from Will in a 24-hour diner 3 blocks away. The vinyl booth creaked, and the coffee tasted like ash, but the air between them crackled with possibility. Will's tuxedo jacket hung over the chair, his tie loosened, revealing a man less polished, more human. "You gutted me up there," he said, leaning forward, his blue eyes intense. "No one's ever called me out like that. You know more about my work than I do." Maya stirred her coffee, wary but intrigued. "Maybe because I live in the neighborhoods you invest in," she said, her tone sharp but not hostile. "I see families lose their homes while you get applause for progress." Will nodded, his expression earnest, almost hungry. They talked for hours about urban policy, systemic racism, and her dream of Maya's radiance. He listened, was genuinely curious, and asked questions that showed a mind capable of growth. "You're brilliant, Maya," he said as dawn painted the sky. "I want to build something with you, not just a business, but a life." When he slid a ring across the table, a simple band, not ostentatious, Maya's breath caught. "Marry me," he said, his voice raw. "Let's change the world together. Your skincare line, my resources, we'll make it happen." Maya's heart raced, torn between hope and caution. She was 18, a black girl from Englewood, and he was a white millionaire promising the stars her father had urged her to reach. Against her better judgment, she said yes, believing love could bridge their worlds. At 19, 6 months into her marriage to William "Will" Carter, Maya Johnson stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of their Chicago penthouse, 40 stories above the city that had raised her. The skyline sparkled like a jewel box, but Maya felt admired, yet untouchable, like a museum exhibit. The penthouse, with its Italian marble floors and art that cost more than her childhood home, was a world apart from Englewood's peeling paint and flickering lights. Yet, it was a prison. Its luxury, a chain around the dream she'd carried since her father's death. Maya's reflection in the glass showed a young black woman in a silk dress, her braids swept into an elegant knot, but her eyes held a quiet storm. She'd deferred her Northwestern scholarship to marry Will, believing his promise of partnership, her skincare line, Maya's Radiance, backed by his wealth. Instead, she'd become a prop in his carefully curated life. Will, the white heir to Carter Enterprises, treated her with affection that felt rehearsed, kissing her forehead each morning before vanishing into boardrooms where her voice had no place. "Don't wait up, sweetheart," he'd say, his words a dismissal cloaked in charm. The loneliness crept in like damp rot. During their courtship, Will had hung on her every word, marveling at her insights on urban policy and social justice. Now, her business plan, a 50-page blueprint for Maya's Radiance, with market analysis and eco-friendly sourcing, sat untouched on his desk, dismissed as adorable. At charity galas, he paraded her as proof of his progressivism, introducing her as my brilliant wife while steering conversations away from her ideas. "Let's not bore them with your hobby, Maya," he'd laugh, his hand possessive on her shoulder, as guests nodded politely, their smiles thin. Will's mother, Evelyn Carter, was a sharper blade. At a family dinner, her blue eyes raked over Maya's dress, a gift from Will, too lavish for her taste. "Such a vibrant addition to our circle," Evelyn purred, her voice dripping with condescension. "However, charity work suits you better than business, dear. It's less complicated." Maya's jaw tightened, but she smiled, swallowing the insult. She'd faced worse in Englewood, classmates' sneers, teachers' neglect, but this was a new kind of prejudice, polished and cloaked in silk. Social events were theaters of erasure. At a children's hospital fundraiser, Maya pitched her skincare line to a group of women investors, her passion igniting their interest. She spoke of affordable yet effective products tailored for women of color, rooted in her grandmother's recipes. For a moment, she felt her father's pride. "Shine bright, Maya." Then Will approached, his smile tight. "Ladies, I hope Maya's little project hasn't distracted you," he said, redirecting them to his latest condo development. The women's eyes dulled, their curiosity snuffed out. Later, in the car, Maya confronted him. "Why do you do that? Undermine me?" Will shrugged, eyes on the road. "It's not serious business, Maya. You're my wife, not my partner. The penthouse became a stage for a role she hadn't auditioned for. Mornings followed a script. Will emerged from his private bathroom, separate as if intimacy required boundaries, dressed in suits that cost more than Lena's annual disability check. Maya cooked breakfast, her hands steady despite the ache in her chest, serving eggs to a man who barely looked at her. She spent days in yoga classes or spa appointments, activities for wives of successful men, but they felt hollow, like dressing a doll in someone else's clothes. Her mother, Lena, is now in recovery. She calls weekly, her voice tentative. "You okay, baby?" she'd ask. Maya lied. "I'm fine," unable to admit she'd traded her dreams for a cage. In secret, Maya fought to keep her spark alive. While Will worked late at night, she huddled in the guest room, refining her business plan. She tested formulas in the kitchen, blending shea butter and aloe by lamplight, her hands sticky but her mind free. Each cream and serum was a rebellion against Will's dismissal, a promise to her father, James, and to Lena, whose fleeting brilliance had inspired her. She mailed samples to Lena, who tested them and sent back notes. "Add more glycerin. It holds moisture better." These exchanges, small but vital, tethered Maya to her roots. The city below pulsed with life, but Maya felt cut off. A black girl from Englewood, playing a role in a white man's world. At business dinners, Will's colleagues discussed billion-dollar deals, acknowledging her only to ask about urban issues, their questions laced with pity. When she offered insights, data on gentrification's impact drawn from her own life, they nodded patronizingly as if she'd recited a child's poem. "Isn't she charming?" one whispered, not quietly enough. Maya's cheeks burned, but she smiled, her dignity a shield forged in more challenging battles. Doubt gnawed at her. Had she been naive to trust Will? Was her father's faith, "You'll change the world," a delusion? One night, staring at the ceiling in their vast bed, Maya traced her fears. She'd left Englewood's dangers, gangs, poverty, for a different kind of trap, one lined with velvet, but no less suffocating. Yet, deep within, a fire flickered. She wasn't just Will's wife or Evelyn's vibrant addition. She was Maya Johnson, daughter of James, heir to a legacy of resilience. Clutching her notebook, filled with dreams of Maya's radiance, she whispered, "I'm not done yet, Daddy." The stars outside, faint through city lights, seemed to nod in reply. At 20, Maya Johnson stood in the marble hallway of the Carter penthouse, her bare feet cold against the floor, her heart colder still. The door to Will's study was ajar, and voices drifted out like poison seeping through a crack. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop. She'd only come to fetch a glass of water after another sleepless night. But the words froze her in place. William Will Carter, her white husband of a year, spoke with his father, Robert, and their tones were casual, as if discussing stock prices, not her life. "She's been a perfect asset for our image," Robert said, his gravelly voice smug. "Market research shows her presence boosts our approval in minority demographics by 15%. Keep her in the annual report, maybe a photo with kids at a community center. She's photogenic." Will's laugh was a blade. "The board loves it. Nothing says progressive, like a black wife from the South Side. It's on brand for our generation." Maya's breath caught, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a gasp. The man she'd married, who'd promised to build an empire with her, saw her as a prop, a diversity checkbox to burnish his company's reputation. Robert's voice hardened. "Just keep her in line, Will. She's getting ideas about that skincare nonsense. We can't have her thinking she's part of the business." Will's reply was chilling. "Don't worry, Dad. She's grateful and manageable. She knows her place." The words shattered Maya's world. each syllable a hammer blow to the dreams she'd built around Will's promises. She stumbled back to their bedroom, her legs shaking, the penthouse's opulence mocking her naivety. She'd deferred Northwestern and left Englewood's struggles for this, a marriage built on lies. Her father's voice, "Shine bright, Maya," felt like a cruel echo, drowned by the truth. She'd been a pawn in Will's game of optics. The next morning, Maya sat at their dining table in her designer dress, a costume she no longer wanted to wear. Will sipped coffee, oblivious, his blue eyes scanning his phone. She'd spent the night replaying their courtship, the diner talks, his awe at her intellect. The ring slid across a scarred table. Had it all been a performance? Her hands clenched, the business plan for Maya's Radiance burning in her mind, dismissed by Will as a cute hobby. She couldn't stay silent. "Will," she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "I heard you last night with your father." His head snapped up, his face paling, but he recovered quickly, a smile sliding into place. "Maya, you're overreacting. Eavesdropping doesn't give you the whole picture." "Stop," she cut him off, her tone steel. "You called me an asset, a prop for your image. You promised partnership, but you've lied every day." Her voice trembled, not with weakness, but with rage. "I trusted you. I gave up everything for you." Will leaned back, his expression shifting to the patronizing calm she'd grown to hate. "Maya, sweetheart, let's be realistic. You were a server scraping by in Englewood. I gave you this life, a penthouse, designer clothes, security. A little gratitude wouldn't hurt." His words were a slap, reducing her to the charity case he'd always seen. "Your skincare thing? It's sweet, but it's not Carter Enterprises." The betrayal crystallized, sharp and final. "You never saw me," she said, standing, her eyes blazing. "You saw a story to sell. I'm done being your trophy." She walked out, her heart pounding, knowing the prenup she'd signed, a formality, Will had called it, left her with nothing. By noon, she'd contacted a lawyer, a pro bono advocate from a women's shelter, who confirmed the prenup's iron grip. No alimony, no assets. Maya packed 2 suitcases, leaving behind the silk dresses and the life she'd mistaken for love. She crashed on a friend's couch in Englewood, the familiar chaos of sirens and shouting a strange comfort after the penthouse's sterile silence. Lena, her mother, now in partial recovery, met her at a coffee shop, her eyes soft with worry. Lena said, "You're stronger than this, baby," squeezing her hand. "You've got your daddy's fire." Maya nodded, but doubt gnawed at her. Had she failed James's dream? Her savings, $500, skimmed from household expenses during the marriage, wouldn't last long. 3 days later, in a public health clinic's bathroom, Maya stared at a pregnancy test, 2 pink lines pulsing like a verdict. She was carrying twins, 2 lives growing inside her when she had no home, job, or partner. Her hands shook, the plastic stick clattering into the trash. Terror surged. She could barely feed herself, let alone 2 children. Yet, as she gripped the chipped sink, her reflection showed fear and defiance. These babies weren't a burden, but a reason to fight harder. Maya walked out into Chicago's biting wind, her hand resting on her still flat stomach. Englewood's streets welcomed her back with their cracked sidewalks and vibrant murals. She thought of her grandmother, Ruth, who'd raised 3 kids alone, and Lena, who'd solved equations despite despair. "I'm not alone," she whispered, her father's words rising like a shield. "I'll shine for you, babies. I'll touch those stars." At 20, Maya Johnson stood in the cramped bathroom of a public health clinic in Englewood, Chicago, clutching a pregnancy test that confirmed her new reality. She was carrying twins. The two pink lines stared back, a verdict both terrifying and sacred. Her life was already a tightrope. Divorced from William Will Carter, penniless after a prenup left her with nothing, sleeping on a friend's couch in a neighborhood where hope was as scarce as heat in winter. Yet, as she gripped the chipped sink, her reflection showed a black woman not broken, but ignited. Her father's words echoing, "Shine bright, Maya." Maya had $500 in savings, skimmed from household expenses during her marriage, and a battered notebook holding her dream of Maya's Radiance, a skincare line for women of color. With no job, no home, and two lives growing inside her, despair loomed like a shadow. But the thought of her twins, two hearts beating in sync with hers, sparked a resolve fiercer than fear. She wouldn't just survive. She'd build a castle for her children, where hunger and dismissal were strangers. She moved into a studio apartment, a 300-square-foot box with peeling wallpaper and a single window overlooking a graffiti-streaked alley. Rent was $600 a month, a fortune. But Maya negotiated with the landlord, offering to clean the building's hallways for a discount. Her mother, Lena, now in partial recovery from depression, sent $100 from her disability check, her voice trembling over the phone. "You're stronger than me, baby," Lena said. "Those kids are lucky to have you." Maya clung to those words, a lifeline in a sea of uncertainty. Days blurred into a grind. Maya enrolled in community college, taking night classes in business to keep her Northwestern scholarship alive. By day, she worked as a cashier at a corner store, her feet aching as she scanned canned goods, her mind racing with formulas for Maya's Radiance. She mixed shea butter and aloe in her tiny kitchen at night, using a hot plate and thrift store jars. Lena mailed handwritten notes. "Try jojoba oil. It holds better." These practical yet tender exchanges rebuilt their bond, a bridge over years of distance. Englewood's realities pressed hard. Sirens wailed outside her window, a reminder of the gangs she'd dodged as a teen. At the store, a customer sneered, "You think you're too good for this place, college girl?" Maya smiled tightly, swallowing her pride. She applied for food stamps, standing in lines with other women, teen moms, laid-off workers, whose stories mirrored hers. The shame stung, but she thought of her twins. "This is for you," she whispered, her hand on her belly, where faint kicks answered like promises. The pregnancy was grueling. Morning sickness turned meals into battles, and exhaustion made her bones ache. Yet Maya pushed forward, testing skincare formulas between shifts. Her first batch, a moisturizer blending lavender and coconut oil, left her skin glowing, a small triumph. She gave samples to coworkers, who marveled at the results. "Girl, this is better than drugstore stuff, Tanya," her coworker said, slipping her $5 for a jar. It was Maya's first sale, a spark that lit her path. Lena visited one weekend. Her steps were slow, but her eyes were clearer than in years. They sat on Maya's lumpy mattress, surrounded by jars of cream. "Lena said your Grandma Ruth would be proud," testing a serum on her wrist. "She made do with nothing, just like you." Maya nodded, tears pricking her eyes. Lena's recovery was fragile, but her support, notes, small checks, shared memories, gave Maya strength. They laughed over Ruth's old recipes, a rare moment of joy in a life of struggle. Community college was a lifeline. Maya's business classes taught her about supply chains and marketing, but her real education came from life. She studied in the library, her belly growing, while classmates whispered about her ringless hand. One professor, Dr. Ellis, a black woman who'd grown up in Bronzeville, noticed her drive. "You've got something special, Maya," she said, handing back a paper on market gaps for black skincare. "Don't let the world tell you otherwise." Maya tucked the encouragement away, a shield against doubt. The twins' kicks grew stronger, a daily reminder of her purpose. Maya named them in her heart, Amara and Zara, after warriors she'd read about in a library book. She worked extra shifts to buy prenatal vitamins, skipping meals to save cash. One night, unable to sleep, she stood at her window, the city's lights a faint echo of the stars her father loved. "I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely a whisper. "But I won't let them down, Daddy." The wind carried her words, and she felt a flicker of his presence urging her on. By her 8th month, Maya had a dozen skincare samples, a business plan scrawled in her notebook, and a fire that no hardship could extinguish. She applied for a small business grant, her application typed on a library computer, detailing how Maya's Radiance could empower women like her. The rejection came swiftly. Not enough experience. But Maya didn't flinch. She'd sell her products on the street if she had to. Her twins deserved a mother who fought, not one who surrendered. Lena's final visit before the birth was a turning point. She brought a jar of Ruth's old Shea blend, its scent stirring memories. Lena said, "You're not just building a business," her voice steady. "You're building a legacy." Maya hugged her, feeling the weight of generations. Ruth's resilience, Lena's brilliance, James's faith. She wasn't alone. With her twins due in weeks, Maya vowed to rise, not just for herself, but for the warrior women who'd come before her and the daughters who'd carry her forward. From age 20 to 24, Maya Johnson's life was a relentless forge, shaping her from a broken young woman into a force of unbreakable will. In Chicago's Englewood, where dreams were often crushed under the weight of poverty and violence, Maya raised her twin daughters, Amara and Zara, while building Maya's Radiance, her skincare line for women of color. Each day was a battle, against hunger, exhaustion, and a world that dismissed black single mothers as statistics. But Maya fought with the fire her father, James, had seen in her. "Shine bright, Maya." Amara and Zara arrived on a snowy March morning, their cries piercing the charity hospital ward like a battle hymn. At 20, Maya held her daughters, their tiny faces mirroring her own, and vowed they'd never know the hunger she'd endured. She moved from her studio to a one-bedroom apartment, its walls thin, but hers to claim. Lena, her mother, now managing her depression with therapy, helped with $200 monthly. Her visits filled with stories of Maya's grandmother, Ruth, who'd survived worse. "You're a warrior, baby," Lena said, rocking Zara, her hands steady for the first time in years. Maya's days were a blur of survival. She worked overnight cleaning offices, her hands cracked from bleach, while Maria, a neighbor who'd raised 6 kids, watched the twins for groceries and gratitude. By day, she attended Northwestern, where her deferred scholarship funding business classes were taken 2 nights a week. Sleep was a luxury, stolen in 15-minute naps on buses. Her $500 savings dwindled, replaced by food stamps and thrift store diapers. Yet every dollar earned defied the voices that said she'd fail. Maya's Radiance grew in stolen moments. At the same time, Amara and Zara napped in a cardboard playpen at the laundromat. Maya mixed oils in mason jars, her hands precise despite fatigue. She sold moisturizers to other mothers, women who needed affordable skincare that worked on their skin, not against it. "This stuff's magic," said Denise, a single mom, trading $10 for a jar. Scribbled in a notebook, Maya's first dozen sales fueled her hope. She faced rejections from retailers wary of a black-owned brand. "Too niche," one buyer snapped, tossing her sample. Maya smiled, but inside, she burned, vowing to prove them wrong. Englewood's dangers loomed. One night, walking home with the twins strapped to her chest, a gang member blocked her path. "Need protection, Mama?" He leered. Maya's heart raced. but she stared him down, clutching her girls. "I protect my own," she said, her voice steel. He backed off, but fear lingered, a reminder of the stakes. Lena, visiting that week, hugged her tight. She said, "You're braver than I ever was," her eyes wet. Northwestern was a grind. Maya's white and wheel classmates eyed her second-hand backpack with pity. She aced exams, and her 4.0 GPA was hard-won on library computers, while the twins slept in carriers. Her professor, Dr. Ellis, became a mentor, sharing contacts in Chicago's black business community. "You're not just smart, Maya," she said. "You're relentless." Maya applied her classwork to Maya's Radiance, analyzing markets and supply chains, and her business plan grew sharper. At 2, Amara and Zara were whirlwinds of energy, toddling through their cramped home like explorers. They'd scribble on Maya's notebooks, their laughter a balm for her exhaustion. "Mama, why do you mix stuff?" Zara asked, smearing shea butter on her cheek. "To make us strong, baby," Maya replied, kissing her. She taught them resilience early, reading them stories of Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth, their eyes wide with wonder. Now a part-time tutor, Lena helped with bedtime, and her recovery was a quiet miracle. The beauty industry's barriers were steep. Retailers demanded minimum orders Maya couldn't afford, and banks laughed at her loan applications. "No collateral," one officer said, eyeing her cheap coat. Maya pivoted, selling at subway stations during rush hour, her samples drawing crowds of working women. "This cream's a lifesaver," a nurse said, buying 2 jars. By 22, Maya had 30 regular customers, and her revenue, $200 a month, a lifeline. She reinvested every cent, buying bulk ingredients from a local supplier who admired her hustle. Doubt crept in during sleepless nights. Was she failing her daughters? Her father? One evening, after a retailer's rejection, Maya sat on her fire escape, the city's lights blurring through tears. Lena found her, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "Your daddy believed in you," she said. "So do I." Maya nodded, her resolve hardening. She wasn't just building a business. She was proving black women could defy a world rigged against them. By 24, Maya's Radiance had a small following, with 50 products sold monthly at community centers and hair salons. Maya hired Maria as her first helper, paying her with jars and gratitude. Amara and Zara, now 4, helped by sticking labels, their giggles filling the apartment. Maya's Northwestern degree was a year away, and her business plan was ready for a real pitch. Standing in her kitchen, surrounded by jars, she whispered to her father's memory, "I'm rising, Daddy, for them." From 25 to 27, Maya Johnson transformed Maya's Radiance from a kitchen experiment into a beacon of hope for women of color in Chicago's beauty landscape. In Englewood, where survival often trumped ambition, Maya, a black single mother, raised her twins, Amara and Zara, while navigating the cutthroat cosmetics industry. Her journey was a testament to her father's belief, "Shine bright, Maya." But it was forged in sweat, setbacks, and the unwavering support of her community. At 25, Maya graduated from Northwestern with a business degree, and her 4.0 GPA was earned through nights of studying, while Amara and Zara slept in their shared bedroom. Her 1-bedroom apartment, now a cozy haven with thrift store curtains and Lena's knitted blankets, buzzed with the energy of her growing enterprise. Maya's Radiance had 50 loyal customers, mostly neighbors and salon clients, buying her moisturizers and serums for $10 a jar. Revenue, $500 a month, barely covered supplies, but each sale felt like a step toward the stars her father, James, had urged her to reach. The beauty industry was a fortress of exclusion. Major retailers dismissed her pitches, their buyers, often white, scoffing at her niche products. One said that black skincare doesn't sell mainstream, tossing her sample aside. Maya's hands clenched, but she smiled, channeling the resilience of her grandmother, Ruth, who'd turned scraps into sustenance. She pivoted to black-owned businesses, pitching to hair salons and community centers. Rejections stung, but a salon owner, Ms. Patrice, gave her a chance, displaying her jars on a shelf. "These are for us. Buy us," Patrice said, buying 10. It was a lifeline. Maya's breakthrough came unexpectedly. At a local market, she set up a folding table with her products, Amara and Zara, now 6, handing out hand-drawn flyers. A customer, a black beauty blogger named Keisha, filmed Maya explaining her mission: affordable, natural skincare rooted in her family's legacy. Keisha's video, posted on Instagram with hashtags like #BlackOwnedBeauty, went viral, racking up 50,000 views. Orders poured in, 100 jars in a week, overwhelming Maya's kitchen. She rented a storage unit as a makeshift warehouse, hiring Maria, her neighbor, to pack orders for $15 an hour. Indeed, Lena, now a part-time bookkeeper for a community center, stepped in to manage Maya's finances. "You're selling dreams, baby," Lena said, her eyes sharp as she balanced spreadsheets. Her recovery, bolstered by therapy, was a quiet miracle, and her presence, organizing receipts and rocking Zara to sleep, grounded Maya. They laughed over Ruth's old recipes, Lena suggesting a rosehip serum that became a bestseller. Sensing their mother's mission, Amara and Zara helped by sticking labels, their giggles filling the apartment. "Mama's making magic," Amara said, smearing cream on her cheek. Maya hugged them, her heart full. Systemic barriers persisted. Banks denied loans, citing her risky profile, a black woman with no collateral. "Come back with a co-signer," one officer said, eyeing her worn shoes. Maya turned to crowdfunding, launching a campaign on a platform for black entrepreneurs. Her raw and honest video shared her story. A single mom, building a legacy for her daughters. Donors, primarily women of color, raised $10,000, enough for professional packaging and a website. Maya cried, overwhelmed, whispering to James's memory, "We're getting there, Daddy." At 26, Maya secured a deal with Ebony Essence, a black-owned beauty chain, after a pitch honed in Northwestern's classrooms. The chain ordered 500 units, a leap from her Subway sales. She hired 2 more employees, Denise, a single mom from the laundromat, and Jamal, a former classmate, forming a team that felt like family. Amara and Zara, now 7, joined Maya at the warehouse, coloring in corners while she filled orders. "Will we be rich, Mama?" Zara asked, her brown eyes curious. "We're rich in love, baby," Maya replied, kissing her. "And we're building more every day." The industry's racism wasn't subtle. At a trade show, a white vendor sneered, "Your stuff's too ethnic for our stores." Maya's jaw tightened, but she handed him a sample, her voice calm. "Try it, then talk." He didn't, but others did. Bloggers, small retailers, spreading her name. Maya's Radiance hit $50,000 in annual revenue. Modest, but monumental for a bootstrap operation. Essence magazine featured her in a Rising Stars column, calling her products a love letter to black women. Maya framed the article and hung it beside Amara's and Zara's drawings. Doubt lingered in quiet moments. Was she stretching too thin? Neglecting her girls? One night, after a late shift, Maya found Amara crying, missing her at bedtime. "I want you home, Mama," she sobbed. Guilt crushed Maya, but she held her daughters, promising balance. Lena, staying over, squeezed her shoulder. "You're showing them strength. she said. Maya nodded, recommitting to her mission, not just for profit, but for a world where her daughters could dream without limits. By 27, Maya's Radiance had 10 employees and a warehouse twice its original size. Maya stood in her office, a corner of the warehouse with a second-hand desk, surveying her empire. Amara and Zara, thriving in school, read at a third-grade level, their confidence mirroring her own. Lena, now a steady presence, smiled from a photo on her desk. Maya wasn't at the top yet, but she'd climbed higher than Englewood's streets ever predicted, her father's stars within reach. At 28, Maya Johnson stood at the helm of Maya's Radiance, her skincare empire, in a renovated warehouse in Chicago's Arts District. The once fledgling business, born in a cramped Englewood kitchen, now generated mid-six-figure revenue, employed 15 women, and graced the pages of Essence magazine. On the morning of Amara and Zara's 8th birthday, Maya transformed the warehouse into a vibrant wonderland, a testament to her journey from poverty to power. Balloons in every hue floated above. Streamers caught the sunlight streaming through skylights, and a star-shaped cake, its icing sparkling like the dreams she'd fought for, stood proud in the center. Maya surveyed the scene with pride and disbelief in a tailored white suit that hugged her frame. 8 years ago, she'd been a penniless single mother, pregnant and broken after her divorce from William Will Carter. Now, she was a CEO, a black woman who defied a world that tried to dim her light. Her twins, Amara and Zara, twirled in matching yellow dresses, their curls bouncing, their laughter a melody that drowned Englewood's echoes. "Mama, this cake's taller than me!" Zara squealed, her brown eyes bright. Amara, more analytical, counted the candles. 8 stars, Mama, like you promised Grandpa. The warehouse buzzed with life. Employees, mostly single mothers like Maya, mingled with their kids, turning the workplace into a family reunion. Maria, Maya's first hire and now operations manager, arranged games, her smile wide. Denise, head of packaging, danced with her son, while Lena, Maya's mother, now a steady presence, adjusted balloons with quiet pride. Lena's recovery had deepened their bond. She'd become Maya's Radiance's bookkeeper, her sharp mind balancing budgets and offering wisdom. "You built this, baby," Lena said, squeezing Maya's hand. "Your daddy's smiling." The party was more than a celebration. It symbolized Maya's vow fulfilled. She'd promised James, her late father, she'd shine bright, and here she stood, her empire a beacon for women of color. The warehouse, once a storage unit, now housed a lab where chemists crafted serums and offices where young professionals marketed products that celebrated black skin. Essence had called Maya's Radiance a revolution in a jar, praising its affordability and authenticity. Maya had framed the article beside her daughter's artwork, a gallery of crayon stars and stick-figure queens. Amara and Zara, thriving in a magnet school, read at a 5th grade level and spoke Spanish from Maria's lessons. They'd grown up watching Maya hustle, mixing creams, pitching to retailers, studying by lamplight. "Mama's a superhero," Amara told a friend, her voice fierce. But Maya wasn't flawless. Guilt lingered from nights she'd missed bedtime stories, working late to meet orders. Last week, Zara had drawn a picture of Maya at her desk, captioned, "Always busy." It cut deep, but Maya made a new promise: to balance her empire with her girl's childhood. The industry hadn't rolled out a red carpet. Despite her viral breakthrough, retailers hesitated, skeptical of a black-owned brand in a white-dominated market. "Too ethnic," one chain's buyer had said, echoing rejections Maya had faced for years. She'd countered with data. Her products outsold competitors in local salons and won a contract with Ebony Essence, now her biggest distributor. Social media amplified her reach. Keisha, the blogger who'd sparked her rise, emceed the party, live streaming to thousands. "This is Black excellence," Keisha declared, raising a glass. Lena's presence anchored the day. She gifted Amara and Zara journals, whispering, "Write your dreams as your mama did." Maya watched her throat tight. Lena's recovery wasn't perfect. Some days, depression still shadowed her, but she'd become a rock, teaching the twins math and Ruth's old remedies. "You're carrying us all forward," Lena told Maya, her eyes wet. Sensing the moment, the twins hugged their grandmother, their small arms bridging generations. As the sun dipped, painting the skyline gold, Maya stood at the warehouse windows, Amara and Zara at her side. Chicago stretched below, its streets once a battlefield, now a canvas of possibility. "Are we famous, Mama?" Zara asked, pressing her face to the glass. Maya laughed, pulling them close. "We're not famous, baby. We're free. Free to be who we were always meant to be." Her father's stars, faint through city lights, seemed to wink in approval. The party wound down, employees heading home, their laughter lingering. Maya sat with her girls, the star-shaped cake half-eaten, its glow mirroring her heart. "Tell us about Grandpa," Amara said, curling into her. Maya smiled, her voice soft. "He said I'd shine bright enough to touch the stars. And now, I'm helping you two do the same." She wasn't perfect, a workaholic, a worrier, but she'd built a legacy, not just for profit, but for her daughters' boundless futures. The warehouse headquarters of Maya's Radiance pulsed with joy on the afternoon of Amara and Zara's 8th birthday. A kaleidoscope of balloons, laughter, and the star-shaped cake that symbolized Maya Johnson's triumph. At 28, Maya, a black woman who'd risen from Englewood's ashes, stood in her tailored white suit, watching her twins twirl in yellow dresses. Her empire, a mid-six-figure skincare brand, was a beacon for women of color, its shelves lined with serums from her grandmother's recipes. Employees and their families danced, Lena adjusted decorations, and Keisha live-streamed the celebration to thousands. But as the party reached its peak, the conference room door creaked open, and a ghost from Maya's past stepped through. William "Will" Carter, now 36, was a shadow of the confident white heir who'd once promised Maya the world. His Navy janitor's uniform hung loose on a frame, thinned by years of loss, his blonde hair dulled, his blue eyes haunted. Once the golden boy of Carter Enterprises, he'd fallen, hard. Gambling debts had devoured his inheritance, fraud charges had tarnished his name, and his family had disowned him after he forged documents that nearly bankrupted them. Now, he pushed a cleaning cart, his rubber-gloved hands stained, a far cry from the manicured fingers that had slid a ring across a diner table a decade ago. Will had applied for the custodial job through a temp agency, using William C. to hide his infamous surname. He hadn't known CG Enterprises was Maya's company, only that it paid rent and offered health insurance. Standing in the doorway, he froze, his breath catching as he saw Maya, radiant, commanding, a queen in her kingdom. The room blurred, and his gaze locked on Amara and Zara, their curls and brown eyes, a mirror of Maya's, but with traces of his features. The sharp jaw, the curve of a nose. His daughters, born from a marriage he'd destroyed, glowed with a confidence he'd never given them. Amara, ever observant, nudged Zara. "Who's the cleaning man?" she whispered, her eyes narrowing. Zara tilted her head, curious but cautious, her intuition sharp for an 8-year-old. "He looks sad," she murmured. Their voices, soft yet piercing, hit Will like a blow. He'd abandoned them before they were born, convinced himself they were better off without him. Now, seeing their joy, their security, he understood the depth of his failure. not just as a husband, but as a father. Maya turned, her smile fading as she met Will's gaze. The room hushed, employees sensing the shift, their chatter falling silent. Lena, arranging napkins, froze, her eyes darting to Maya. Keisha lowered her phone, the live stream forgotten. Maya's expression was unreadable, a calm forged from years of surviving betrayal. She stepped forward, her heels clicking on the polished floor, her presence filling the space like a storm held in check. "William," she said, her voice steady, neither warm nor cold. "I didn't expect to see you here." Will's throat tightened, and his voice barely whispered. "Maya, I didn't know." He glanced at the twins, his heart fracturing. "They're mine, aren't they?" The question hung, raw and desperate. Amara and Zara looked up, their faces mixed with confusion and curiosity. "Mama, who's he?" Amara asked, her tone protective. Maya knelt, her hands gentle on their shoulders. "Someone from a long time ago," she said softly. "Play babies." They hesitated, then ran to Maria, glancing back at the stranger. The silence was heavy, a courtroom of unspoken verdicts. Will's hands gripped the cart, his knuckles white. "I lost everything," he said, his voice cracking. "The money, the company, my family. I gambled it all away. I could win it back, but I was wrong." His eyes, once arrogant, now held only regret. "I didn't know this was your place. I just needed work." Maya stood, her gaze unwavering. "This is my place," she said, her words deliberate, built from nothing while raising them. She nodded toward the twins, who laughed with Denise's son, oblivious to the moment's weight. "You don't get to walk in and claim them, William. You chose to leave." Her words cut, not with anger, but with truth. Will's shoulders slumped, the reality of his fall stark against Maya's rise. He'd once called her a charity case and dismissed her dreams as naive. Now, she was a CEO, her warehouse a testament to her brilliance, while he cleaned floors for minimum wage. The irony was cruel, but he couldn't look away from Amara and Zara, their confidence, their joy, a legacy he'd had no part in creating. Lena approached, her eyes sharp. "You hurt my girl once," she said quietly, her voice a warning. "You can't do it again." Will nodded, unable to meet her gaze. He backed toward the door, his cart rattling, but paused. "I'm sorry, Maya," he whispered for everything. Maya didn't respond. Her silence was a wall he couldn't breach. As he retreated, the party resumed, laughter filling the void. But Will carried the weight of his daughter's faces, a reminder of what he'd lost and might never reclaim. 3 weeks after Amara and Zara's 8th birthday, Maya Johnson sat in her office at Maya's Radiance, the warehouse headquarters humming with the quiet of a late evening. At 28, she was a black CEO who'd turned her grandmother's recipes into a mid-six-figure empire, a beacon for women of color in Chicago's cutthroat beauty industry. Her desk held a photo of her twins, their smiles bright against the backdrop of Englewood's struggles, and a framed Essence article praising her rise. But tonight, her calm was tested by the ghost who'd haunted her past. William "Will" Carter. Will, now 36, stood before her, his janitor's uniform a stark contrast to the tailored tuxedos of their marriage. The white heir who'd once dismissed her as a charity case was a broken man, his blonde hair thinning, his blue eyes hollow from years of gambling, fraud, and loss. Since his unexpected appearance at the birthday party, he'd worked the night shift, cleaning floors with a humility Maya hadn't thought possible. She'd avoided him, but he'd asked to speak tonight, and curiosity, mixed with caution, brought her here. The office was small, a corner of the warehouse with a second-hand desk and shelves of skincare samples. Amara and Zara slept in the on-site daycare, and their soft snores reminded them of what was at stake. Maya's mother, Lena, had urged caution before leaving for the night. "He hurt you once, baby," she'd said, her eyes sharp from years of recovery. "Don't let him near my grandbabies unless he's earned it." Maya nodded her heart, a fortress built from betrayal. Will stood, his hands clasped, no longer the arrogant prince who'd promised her an empire. "Maya," he began, his voice low, "I need to say this. I was a fool. Worse, a cruel, entitled fool." He swallowed, his gaze fixed on the floor. "I lost everything. My family's fortune, name, pride, gambling, bad deals, lies. I could outrun my mistakes, but I hit rock bottom. Therapy made me see it. I was a coward who threw away the best thing in my life. You." Maya leaned back, her expression unreadable, her tailored suit a shield of authority. She'd rebuilt herself from his betrayal, raising Amara and Zara while creating Maya's Radiance. His words stirred memories. The diner where he'd proposed, the penthouse where he'd dismissed her dreams. But she held firm, her father's voice steadying her. "Shine bright, Maya." "I saw them," Will continued, his voice breaking. "Amara and Zara. They're incredible. I didn't know, Maya. I walked away before they were born, thinking you were better off without me. But seeing them, seeing you." He gestured to the office, the awards, the photos. "You built this without me, despite me. I hate the man I was, the one who called you a prop, who used your brilliance for my image." Maya's jaw tightened. She remembered his words, "You're manageable," and the prenup that left her penniless. "What do you want, William?" she asked, her tone even but edged with steel. "You can't undo the past. Those girls don't know you. I've told them their father wasn't ready to love them, that he's on his journey. Why should I let you near them?" Will flinched, but met her gaze. "I don't expect forgiveness. What I did, using you, abandoning you, was unforgivable. But I've been in therapy for 2 years, facing my privilege, my selfishness. I work this job because it's honest. I'm not here to take anything. I want to earn the right to know them, to be a father who chooses them every day, not just when it's convenient." Amara's voice echoed from the daycare, a sleepy giggle. Maya's heart clenched. She'd protected her girls from a world that undervalued black women, from a father who'd seen her as less. But their questions about him lingered. "Mama, is our dad bad?" Zara had asked last week, her eyes searching. Maya had softened the truth. He wasn't ready, but people can change. Now, facing Will, she weighed their needs against his past. "You broke me," she said, her voice low, raw. "I rebuilt myself for them, not you. They're my world, William. Any step you take near them has to be for their sake, not your redemption." She paused, her eyes piercing. "Prove you've changed. Not with words, but with time. Supervised visits on Saturdays, starting small. You read to them, listen to them. If you falter, you're gone." Will nodded, his face a mix of hope and shame. "I'll do whatever it takes," he said. "For them, for you, if you'll let me." Maya stood, her presence commanding. "This isn't about me. It's about Amara and Zara. They deserve a father who shows up, not one who needs saving." She moved toward the door, pausing. "Lena will watch you. So will I." Maya felt the weight of her decision as she walked to the daycare. Chicago's skyline glittered beyond the warehouse windows. a reminder of the stars she'd reached for her father. She wasn't forgiving Will. She was giving her daughters a chance to know a man who might, just might, be more than his mistakes. 8 months after allowing William Will Carter supervised visits with Amara and Zara, Maya Johnson stood in her office at Maya's Radiance, the Chicago warehouse glowing under soft winter light. At 28, she was a Black CEO whose skincare empire, born from Englewood's grit, now boasted 7-figure revenue and 20 employees, primarily women of color. Her twins, thriving at 8, filled her heart, their laughter echoing through the on-site daycare. Yet, as Maya reviewed expansion plans, her thoughts lingered on Will, a white man whose past betrayal had nearly broken her, now striving to earn a place in their daughters' lives. Will, 36, had transformed from the arrogant heir who dismissed Maya as a prop into a humble janitor, his life reshaped by therapy and honest work. He'd kept his promise, showing up every Saturday at a community center near Maya's Radiance. Under Lena's watchful eye, he read to Amara and Zara, helped with homework, and listened to their dreams. Amara's love for science, and Zara's passion for stories. At first, the twins were wary, calling him Mr. Will, their brown eyes searching for truth. But his consistency softened them. "He knows all the dinosaur names," Amara said one evening, her tone surprised. Zara, more cautious, added, "He's nice, but he's not you, Mama." Maya observed from a distance, her heart a battlefield of caution and hope. She'd built a fortress around her girls, protecting them from a world that undervalued Black women, from a father who'd abandoned them before birth. Yet, their questions, why wasn't he here before, tugged at her. She'd told them, "He's learning to improve," a truth tempered by Lena's advice. "Give him a chance, but keep your eyes open." Lena, now a steady grandmother, joined visits, and her recovery is a quiet strength. "He's trying," she told Maya, "but trust takes years, not months." Will's efforts were small, but deliberate. He sent the twins books, science for Amara, poetry for Zara, each with handwritten notes, "Keep shining." He donated to Maya's community programs, anonymous sums from his meager wages, supporting scholarships for Black girls. At work, he cleaned Maya's Radiance carefully, polishing lab equipment beyond his duties. Maria, the operations manager, noted that he's not the man you married, Maya. He's different. But Maya knew change wasn't a finish line. It was a daily choice, one Will had failed before. Maya's Radiance soared, selling its serums in 10 Black-owned chains nationwide. A partnership with a significant online retailer loomed, but industry bias persisted. A white executive dismissed her pitch at a trade show. "Your brand's too focused on specific demographics." Maya smiled, handing him data showing her product's universal appeal and securing a trial order. Social media amplified her voice. Keisha's posts reached millions, celebrating Black-owned beauty. Yet, success didn't erase Maya's doubts. Was she risking her girls' hearts by letting Will in? One snowy December evening, Maya stayed late, reviewing contracts while Amara and Zara slept in the daycare. Will knocked his uniform crisp despite the hour. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice tentative. Maya nodded, gesturing to a chair. Lined with awards and the twins' drawings, the office felt like a courtroom. "I don't expect forgiveness," Will began, his eyes steady. "I hurt you in ways I can't undo, using you, abandoning our girls. Therapy showed me my privilege and my cowardice. I'm here to be their father, not to fix my guilt." Maya leaned forward, her gaze piercing. "They're not your redemption, William. They're my daughters, whole without you. Why should I trust you won't hurt them?" Will exhaled, his hands clasped. I've spent 8 months choosing them, showing up, listening, learning who they are. I know Amara wants to be a chemist, and Zara writes poems secretly. I'm not perfect, but I'm committed to earning their trust, one day at a time. Amara's giggle drifted from the daycare, softening the air. Maya thought of their questions and their cautious warmth toward Will. They're starting to like you, she admitted, her voice tight. But they don't need a hero. They need someone who stays, no matter what. She paused, weighing Lena's counsel and her therapist's words. Your boundaries protect them. We'll continue the visits, she said. But it's slow, supervised, always. You prove yourself to them, not me. Will nodded, relief mixing with resolve. Thank you, Maya, for giving me this chance. As he left, Maya stood at her window, Chicago's skyline glittering like the stars her father, James, had promised. She wasn't forgiving Will. She was choosing her daughter's right to know a father who might be worthy. The path was uncertain, but Maya, forged in fire, knew she'd guard her empire and her girls with unwavering strength.